Every single time in my life where I basically have felt like I was at rock bottom, it has always been a springboard into bigger and better things. At age 20, I was a fat high school student who had just dropped out. I was 15K in debt and I was headed nowhere fast. Fast forward to 42, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in my best shape, I'm making 7 figures, and I feel like I'm just getting started right now.
If I want to be, I think there'll be people in the audience that are like, listen man, like the gym stuff is cool, but like I just want to crush it in business. I want to show up to my job and I want to crush it. What is the value to them of working out and getting in shape?
That's why I do what I do. That was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my entire life. And when that happened, it was like the very first time I had these like thoughts of like suicidal ideation of like, what the heck is the point? Basically I said like, this, and I was just like, I am going to commit to greatness and I don't give an F at all. What happened after that point? I pretty much changed the system.
Very few things that we do, we're 100% committed. How can people start to build that commitment muscle?
Well, the first thing I would do is like look back to...
Before we get into the video, YouTube analytics say that 90% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. If you want to see even bigger guests, better conversations, please subscribe. It really helps us grow the podcast. And with that, onto the video.
Hello, welcome to the Callum Johnson Show. My name is Callum, and on today's episode we have Dan Go. Dan, welcome to the show, man.
What's up? Thanks for having me, Callum. Appreciate it.
I know, it's a pleasure to get you on. I've been following you on Twitter for a while. You're like the go-to health guy for me on Twitter.
Oh, thanks.
So yeah, it's great to have this conversation.
I appreciate that, man.
Okay, cool. So I want to start off with one of your tweets. I kind of think it's the perfect place to just get started. So I'm going to read it out and then we can get into it. So this is what you said. You said at age 20, I was a high school dropout who was fat, 15K in debt, and headed nowhere. At age 40, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in my best shape, 0 debt, built a 7-figure gym business, sold it, and I'm just getting started. The catalyst, transforming my body. So, okay, there's so much to get into with that. Here's where I want to start. What happened from age 20 to age 40 that this incredible transformation took place?
Yeah, well...
This episode is brought to you by Free Agency. If you want to take your career to the next level, Free Agency is a company that you should check out. They manage and represent talent in the tech industry, and they provide you with a dedicated talent agent to help you find, engage, and win top of market roles that will maximize your earning potential. No more leaving money on the table. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency. Anyway, back to the show.
You know, it's a lot of people are just like, they always ask the question. It's like, what's the one thing that made you this or made you that? I always like to say it's like a confluence of different things that have happened. So there are 2 big events that happened in my life. The very first one was, as I said in that tweet, I was a broke, purposeless, fat, high school dropout, not even college dropout, but a high school dropout. And then one day, my dad he gave a gym pass. He started going to the gym. Lo and behold, started going to the gym. Started going there every single day, and I was just like, "Where's this guy going? What is he doing with his life? And why is he leaving at 6 a.m.?" I was actually coming home at 6 a.m. from like partying, and I would see him. I would cross his path. I'd be like, "Oh man, so embarrassed. Think I'm going to be in trouble." And I just ask him where he's going. And he'd be like, "I'm going to the gym." And he did that for, I think it was like 6 to 8 months. I saw him lose about like 20 to 30 pounds off of his body. He was this like busy entrepreneur. He took us from poor to middle class. He worked like 12 to 24-hour days in the printing shop. And then I saw him do that. And lo and behold, he went to the gym so much. He became such a great member of the gym. They gave him a 1-month pass as a gift. And he gave it to my oldest brother. And then lo and behold, like my oldest brother, he's like, I don't want this. So just like his clothes, he would like pass me down this 1 month pass, and then I was like, huh, I got this pass. I'm not doing anything with my life, and the worst case scenario is that I see some girls, and I see some hot girls, and that's pretty much like the worst thing that can happen if I do this. Best thing that happens is that I have something to do for an hour or 2 hours a day because I wasn't doing anything during the day. So I ended up going, and I remember I went there and went to the gym. I started looking at bodybuilding magazines that they had there and started doing the exercises that they were doing, and I was doing them like horribly. And then about 1.5 to 2 weeks after that, I go inside the change room and I'm putting on my pants, and then I try to put on my belt, but my belt actually goes in about 2 notches. And I'm just like, wait, that's not supposed to happen. And ever since I got that result, I became hungry because it opened up this world to say that, hey, guess what? Like, if I can't control anything else in my life, the one thing I can control is like me going to the gym and doing something and actually taking care of my health. So that was like the first catalyst. Now, the second catalyst was the passing of my mom when I was 24 years old. So she passed when she was about like in her low 50s. It was actually pretty sudden. It was a sudden ordeal. It was a 6 month ordeal as well. It happened because during a surgery, there was a complication, and then there was an infection that the surgeons left in her, caused her to have heart attacks. She was in the ICU for like 6 months. And we thought that she was actually going to make a recovery. And what happened is that they put her in the next level down from the ICU, whatever that level is. I forgot what it is. And the next day she got pneumonia. All blood pretty much just stopped going to her brain. And then we were there with her. The doctor was telling us that, hey, there's about like a 0.00001% chance that your mom's not going to be a vegetable. So you guys can keep her on life support, or you guys can let her go. And our family made a decision, and we were just like, well, we don't want her to live like that at all. So we made the unfortunate decision to let her go. And then, just like any kind of death, for me, this actually put death at the forefront of my life at such a young age that I don't get as fazed by death as other people, because of the fact that one of the biggest events, which is like someone close to you dying, which is like my mom dying, it happened when I was like 24. So I don't think I'm numb to death, but I just don't necessarily see it as shocking as a lot of people. And during that time when my mom passed away, during those months, I was incredibly depressed, crying every single day, just like anyone would when they lose their mom. And then while I was in my state of self-pity and depression, there was like this little voice that came out in my mind. And I was just like, hey, you can either let this energy and this emotion just eat you up and just take over you, or you can use this energy as fuel. And I don't even know where that voice came from. And it was at that point in time, I was just like, you know what? Well, I've never really had a purpose in my life whatsoever. Now I'm going to do something that I feel fully just passionate about, and I feel like it is something that I can do to help others, which was to go fully into fitness. And ever since that day, never looked back. Never once second guessed myself. Everyone told me I shouldn't do it. This was literally like 2 decades ago, where fitness isn't what it is right now. You don't have your Gymshark. You don't have your Lululemon. You don't have this like Instagram stuff, right? This is like 2 decades ago, where people thought that being a personal trainer was a side job. So all my friends and all my family, I guess you could say it's a third catalyst. All my friends, all my family, they all told me not to do it. They all told me, don't do it. You're going to fail. You're going to go back to living the corporate life. And that was actually the fuel that I needed to really make something of myself. So I took all that, and then basically I never said anything back, but internally I was like, I'm going to show you motherfuckers, I'm going to show you guys. And ever since then, I've been kind of just like following my passion and just going full force with fitness.
Yeah. No, that is really powerful, and I think it's something that I think needs to be discussed more. Um, because I think it's so powerful, especially for men and like young men, is having a purpose, having something that you can take all of this energy that you have at this age and you can pour it into something which is productive. And it's interesting because even before we jumped on to record this podcast, I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about how there's more men today than ever before who are just very apathetic. They don't really have anything to put their time in. They don't have anything that they care about. They're spending a lot of time like playing video games. They're not even really going on dates or trying to, because that was always the thing that would motivate men, right? It's like, at least I'm going to go out there and
women.
Yeah, some women. But even that is like becoming not as much of a thing. If you were going to go back to that age 20, that first spark point when you went to the gym and you kind of fell in love with it and you were like, okay, this is where I want to put my time. If you were to go back even before that moment, what do you think it was about your life that it was just that now when you reflect on it, you're like, I just didn't really have any purpose? Like, where did that sense of just not having that drive, like, where was it coming from? Was it the environment? Was it just that you hadn't found the thing yet? Like, where did it begin?
Well, I would take that back to the context of how I was raised. So this is not anything against like my parents at all, but like my dad was working 12 to 24 hours a day. My mom was working with him, and there was no one at the house to take care of us. I was like what we would call like a latchkey kid. So my environment was getting taken care of by my older brothers and sister. And if there's anything that you know about children, they're horrible people. I mean, like if they if they're gonna do some messed up stuff, then I would not want to put them in charge of taking care of like another child when they are themselves a child. So I went through bullying from like all angles, and I was kind of like the runt of the kid. And even during that time, I was not only getting bullied like in my household, I was like getting bullied like outside of my household, like in school. And it was a confluence of just like being told that I was stupid, that I was never going to amount to anything, that my parents, even my own parents would be like, there's out of all of our kids, like we're scared for you. And that had an effect in me just being like, well, what the heck is the point of all this? What's the point of even trying? So I didn't even try in school. I didn't even try in, even when I went to college, I got good grades and stuff. But even then, like, I was just like, this is pointless. Why am I even doing this? And I do believe that at some point in time, your environment conditions you to think and to identify with certain things. And then when you identify with, let's just say, being stupid or being aimless or being purposeless or being lazy, then if you identify with that, then that is the reality that you're going to bring out in your life. And a lot of things for me have been the breaking down and the breaking through the ceilings that I have placed on myself and that other people placed on me. And it's not this Pollyannish thing of like, I can do anything in the world, but it's literally like me doing experiments and being like, hey, like if I try this for like the next like 2 years, what do you think is going to happen? I don't know. Let's try it out. Let's figure it out. And then every single time that you go on this step ladder and you kind of prove it to yourself, then you actually have these this modicum and this like toolbox of wins that you can look back on, that you can always like build upon and be like, keep on going up the ladder. What else do I feel is like limitless? What else do I feel like is out of my reach? Let's go and try to reach that. Why not experiment with it? But I do believe like the environment and the things that people say to you, and also the things that you say to yourself, go a very long way in you creating the reality that you are creating. So talking about like a lot of guys right now, they're like aimless, they're purposeless. I do believe a lot of that has been pushed in society in terms of like the way that they communicate towards men, in the sense that men are kind of like seen, or they had been seen as like this secondhand gender, and they're only we haven't necessarily been, I guess you could say, just like given the due that we actually have in this world. But at the same time, again, it's back to the individual, back to the environment, back to what they identify with, and back to their own thoughts about what they think is possible.
It's interesting listening to you speak, because I think really what you speak to, it's a lack of confidence, and in a way that it's funny, as you were speaking, I thought this. I was like, the ultimate confidence is actually just like self-improvement. Like waking up with the desire to improve yourself is almost like the ultimate belief you can have. Because basically what you're communicating to yourself is that I can be better. The person I am now can actually get better. And there's logical small steps that I can take every day that will make me better at some future point. And I think the difficulty when you feel aimless and you feel this lack of confidence is that it gets to the point where you identify with that, which is what you're speaking to, right? Which is like it's not only me reinforcing it. My environment is telling me this is who I am. The people that know me the best, family members, maybe parents, siblings, they're reinforcing it. My whole world, this is the narrative. This is the story of my life. And so I think something that could be really helpful, and I'm curious actually to get your perspective as someone who's lived through it personally, and also someone who's a coach. If you were to go to your 20-year-old self as the Dan that you are now, with what you've achieved, with what you've built, with the transformation and the changes, and you were going to coach your 20-year-old self who was purposeless, as you say, at the time, what would be the first steps? What would be the first things that you would do for that person, that they can start to change just the identity, they can start to change the thought, start to change the narrative?
I think the very first thing I would do would be to literally teach them how to work out properly. That's probably the very first thing. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of outcomes in life that we do not have control over. We can invest, we can save, we don't have control of the markets. To entrepreneurship, to a certain degree, we don't have control over how well our business does, depending on like our actions that we take. We have a certain modicum of control, but not necessarily. But we do have control over our behaviors in terms of like how we work out our body and what we put into our mouths. So I always like to say that fitness was the conduit for me for self-improvement, because it allows you to control what you have control over. I can move my body. I can learn how to do a bench press if taught properly. I can learn to shape myself. I can learn how to work out properly, how to use progressive overload. And the thing about fitness as well is the fact that, as with anything, it gives you all of these little lessons while you're in the throes of doing it. Think something simple like progressive overload, doing just like a little bit more than your body is capable of so you can grow muscle. This relates to pretty much like your focus. It relates to the amount of love that you can give to other people. it amounts to the type of attention that you can give to a certain project. Like progressive overload is not just a rule of fitness, it's also a rule for life. So I would literally be the personal trainer that I am and be like, all right, here's the program that we're going to be under. Here's what we are actually going to do to gain muscle. Here's what we're going to do to recover. Here's what I'm going to do to fix up your sleeping habits. And fortunately, I've actually been able to do this for a couple of like 20-year-olds as well, as I was like coaching, and it's been incredible just to see like what happens when someone takes control of their own bodies. Now, is there something else that I would do? Honestly, like I would throw him towards Tony Robbins, Get the Edge, and just throw his ass towards like self-development. Anything that is going to be introspective and anything that's going to teach him about how to think, how to set goals, and how to develop yourself in a world that is just like built for comfort. And yeah, like my first, like I actually got the Tony Robbins Get the Edge tapes, I guess you could say. They're CDs back then. I got them for my friend. He gave them to me for free, and I just like devoured it when I got a hold of it. That was when I was like 26, 27 years old. And I wish I got those things earlier, because it's not this like rah, you can do it type of like motivation. It's literal application of the things that that will make your life better from a physical, from a relationship angle, from a financial angle. So, I mean, I would literally give him like Tony Robbins, Get the Edge, Unlimited Power, or whatever his other programs were, and just get them to sit in a freaking room and devour those things, take action on them, and then that is going to pretty much like line up the course of the next at least like 5 to 10 years of his life. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's like so hard to really go back and connect these dots. I'm like 43 right now, and it's like, man, would I do anything different? I don't know. I'm here right now and I love where I am. And I don't think I would be right here if if I didn't have to go through all those things. And here's like the really cool thing about all of this stuff is the fact that, we can say the thing, we can be like, hey, here's how you miss this mistake, or here's how you don't make this mistake. And that's cool. And it works sometimes. I do believe that for a very good portion of us, it doesn't matter if you know which mistake to miss. I do believe that there is value in actually making these mistakes. And when you make these mistakes, that is like the true part of learning. I do talk about like not making the same mistake twice. Sometimes you do need to make the same mistake twice. I mean, damn, like sometimes you do, just to like learn the lesson even harder. So, all these things that I would say for him to be like, oh, like, watch out for this, watch out for that. I'd probably just like chill out and just be like, you know what, like this is where you are at 43. Just relax. You're gonna be fine. Here's a Tony Robbins tape. Maybe you can accelerate your development a little bit more. Here's how to work out properly instead of ego lifting in the gym. You'll probably get better results that way. But other than that, I probably would just like, relax and let him do his thing.
Yeah, you know what's it's funny because I have an interesting vantage point where like, so I turned 25 in February, so like a month ago.
Happy
and
birthday.
I have all these thank you. And I have all these conversations with like a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of people that have achieved these incredible things. And they're maybe in their 40s or their 50s, and you'll ask them sometimes, you'll be like, what advice would you have for someone who's like 25 or like someone who's 20? And they'll be like, just relax. Like, just, just it will come. It will like, don't take everything so seriously. And you're like the 25-year-old or like the 20-year-old who's like trying to go into this world and like achieve something. And there's like an angst, right? Like there's like you're like, there's I feel it all the time and I kind of have to balance it out. There's an impatience to get the thing that you want. And it's funny that like the people that have it, it's almost like you go on this journey of life and you're pursuing something, you're pursuing, and then you get it
only to find like you didn't actually really need that thing. And it's with me, even though I'm consciously aware of this, I still, like you kind of said, like experience is the best teacher. I'm like, I still want to see it. I still want to achieve all the stuff that I want. And then,
Yeah.
um,
No, I agree. Like, I think that one should be goal focused and then balance that with the goal actually being to do exactly what you're doing at this very moment. Uh, Too often we can be caught up with like, okay, so we're living in this culture which is like success driven, especially if you're on like Twitter. Twitter is like Twitter and social media. It's like everyone's just posting their wins all over the place, and then you can look at like say like Danny Miranda or something like that, and be like, yeah, I'm interviewing like freaking Joe Biden or like whatever Obama or whatever, and then the thing is that like we see these like we see these amazing wins and like all this kind of stuff. We don't necessarily see the process or the actual work. And I love this like I don't know if it, I don't know if this is the exact quote from the Bhagavad Gita, but pretty much it's like you are not what is it saying? The saying is that you're not obligated or you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. You're only entitled to the work. And if we actually put our like focus on that work and making it as great as humanly possible, then and you kind of like let go of like whatever the outcome is, it's this like weird universal, universe, God type thing, spirituality, whatever you want to call it. But you end up kind of getting the outcome. And then when you get the outcome, you're like, it's like you always knew that you were going to get it. It's just a matter of time. And once you get it, you're just like, okay, cool. What's next? And you don't really have that kind of like dopamine hit of just like, oh God, like, I have like fucking $100 million. It's really just like, all right, what's next? Because the true gift is the work that you're putting in and the research that you put in behind like every single podcast. Or for me, it's like the work I'm putting into the course that I'm doing, trying to make it as great as possible, or into like every tweet that I create or every thread that I create.
You know, I think it's interesting because I think sometimes we just ascribe and we prescribe too much complexity to things. I find, and I think for me personally, I always try and simplify. Like even when it's like, how do you get like I want to be the number one podcast, like I want to be the number one in this genre of like entrepreneurship, self-improvement, business. I want to be the number one. And when you make a goal like that, it's like, how do you go about doing that? There's so much nuance and so many things that would go into it. But if you really boil it down and you use like the 80-20 principle, like 20% of what you're doing causes 80% of the effects and 80% of the results, it's actually pretty simple, right? It's like consistency. Like you put out episodes consistently, you get like big time guests, your marketing is consistent, your process is consistent. A lot of it is just doing the same thing for prolonged periods of time. And even for you, it's like when you told the story about what it was like when you were 20, or what it was like even when you were 24 and your mum died, and like recovering from that just mentally and starting to build up again. It's like the path was kind of simple. It was a commitment to working out. It was a commitment to mastering my mind and my body, and just improving. I'm curious. So you elevate from that, from where you were at 20. You elevate from where you were at 24 through working out. And it makes sense now why even in the tweet you said like that's what transformed your life. That was the catalyst. I'm curious, has there been another catalyst in your life similar to working out when you just compare the effects? So when you think about working out and you can look back at periods in your journey and be like, that was the changing point. It was when I started committing to working out. Things changed after that. Are there certain other moments, certain other habits, catalysts, whatever you want to call it, in your life that have had the same effect? And if so, what were they?
one of them that comes to mind is when I owned my gym, and this was about maybe 5 or 6 years into owning my gym. We were doing pretty well. Things were great. Uh, you know, I felt like things were great. And then I was about to open up another gym with one of my head trainers. And then what ended up happening was she was just like, well, you know, I actually said that I don't really think I want to open up another gym. And then she was just like, yeah, kind of don't really want to do that either. And then she ended up opening up another gym, pretty much like just like down the street from me. And it became this thing where it felt like my livelihood was getting taken away because like all these like people who were training with us at the gym started to migrate over to her gym. Like we literally lost, I think, like 50% of our membership base. We have overhead of like whatever we're doing inside of the actual gym itself. Pretty tough. And then we lost like a couple trainers to her as well. And that was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my entire life. And when that happened, it was like the very first time I had these like thoughts of like suicidal ideation of like, what the heck is the point? You know, will people even know if I'm gone or not? Right? Because it was such like a huge hit to our business. And then I remember being in my office, and it was like right after one of our trainers said, yeah, I'm gonna jet and I'm gonna go over to the other gym. And I was just sitting there in my office, and I was just like, all right, what are we gonna do? And then it was at that point where I was like, you know what? I hope I'm allowed to swear on this, but basically I said like, fuck this. And I was just like, I am going to commit to greatness. And I don't give an F at all. What happened after that point? I pretty much changed the systems inside of my own business. I was just like, I'm not accepting you if you can't, if you won't abide by these specific rules to actually get inside my gym. We're gonna make this actually like high level, high touch, elite. And that was kind of like this turning point because at that point in time, I was just like this regular kind of like group training gym, and you know, people were coming in, getting workouts and whatnot. But I changed the actual energy of that. And I was like, you know what? We are going to transform bodies. And that's what we're going to be focused on. I literally like changed the name to becoming like the first body transformation center in all of North America. I was just like, this is like what we're after. This is like who we want. These are the rules to get into this. And this is the price for it. And I don't care who comes in and who doesn't. It doesn't matter to me, but I know like every single person that comes in, we're going to do a bang on job. I recreated all of the systems that we did, and I used that, and you basically used that energy. And I was just like, we're going to make this great, even greater than it is at this very moment. And, you know, God bless her. I mean, like, I have nothing against that girl for leaving whatsoever. I mean, at the time I had like mad resentment. Now I'm just like, hey, you know, we all got to look out for our own and all this kind of stuff, you know? But at that time, I was just like, okay, well, I'm like every single time in my life where I basically have felt like I was at rock bottom, it has always been a springboard into bigger and better things. And then this is like the stuff that I tell myself as well when like, you know, stuff is hitting the fan. It's like, hey, like every single time this happens, I always like bounce back even better than I was before. And basically, I used that particular situation as enough energy to really transform the business. And then at that point in time, people were like, after about like a year, people were copying us. People were calling their own gyms like body transformation centers. Like people were copying our systems. People were copying everything that we were doing because of like how much of an impact that it had on our clients and how much like people were actually talking about it in the first place.
Mm.
So I would say like that was probably a huge catalyst, like business wise, for me, kind of like just switching up my mindset and just like turning things around.
Mm. It's interesting. It's interesting what you said that the moments when you felt like you hit rock bottom were also the greatest like springboards in your life. And it's like a pattern, right? It's a pattern that you can even see uh throughout this episode. It's like at 20 that I was in this place and it was rock bottom and I found the gym. At 24 it happened again. At a few years later when I'm starting my own gym and one of the trainers leaves and starts a rival company, we hit rock bottom again and then we do it again. It's like this it's a cycle of like building up and then almost like a destruction and falling down and then building up again. And it sounds very
I
dramatic.
wish I wish it didn't have to happen like that, but you
Yeah.
know, the way that you're explaining, I'm like, oh man, yeah.
But like, I'm curious when you reflect in that rock bottom, what is it that you're tapping into? Because there's something there, right? There's something that it's almost if you think of one of those like superhero movies and like you're almost you're tapping into a level of performance that is above your natural capacity. Like
Yeah.
what is that?
I like to call it my, well, now that I'm like thinking about it, it's like my DNGAF kind of just mindset and muscle. And that means just like do not give an F. Uh it's I remember when I was like first starting out as a trainer and people were like, you're gonna fail, man. You're gonna come back, you're gonna work the corporate life, and you're gonna have to start all over again. And every single time someone said that to me, I was just like, I didn't say anything back, but inside of my mind, I was like, I am gonna make this happen, or I'm gonna die trying. I do not give an F. It's literally this idea where you are going to accomplish what you are going to accomplish, and it's just a matter of time, and you are going to exhaust every single opportunity. You're going to exhaust every single effort to get to that level that you know that you can get to. Another thing that also pops into my mind is the idea that I truly believe that no one is like talented. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. Like talent to me is just hours of practice and preparation. That is it. So like when people are like Mozart was like this talented composer and musician, yes, he was, but they didn't see the background where pretty much almost every single hour of his waking day was committed towards music, towards practice. So behind every single person that we see as like successful or whatever it is, talented, that is like what the average person would say towards someone that has done basically like 10 to 20,000 hours of work
Hmm.
to look as talented and as effortless as they do. What that tells me is that I remember thinking this. I'm like, if this guy can do it, I can freaking do it. Everyone's human, and 99% of us, we have the same capabilities. It's just a matter of thinking that it's possible and a matter of putting the work behind it to make it happen. So if I can just find whatever that is, and as I think as like Sahel Bloom says, is like create your surface area of luck. I think I do believe that if you can actually create a bigger surface area of luck for yourself through effort, through meeting people, through constant growth, through just strategy and also reading the right things, then there's nothing that is outside of our realm of possibility. So yeah, I would say it's like those things, and then every single time that those things happened, I like took a hard look in the mirror, and I was just like, "You gonna let this happen? All right, you want to quit? You know, like I wasn't even looking in the mirror. It was basically like me looking at myself while like staring into like a pillow or something like that. It was like, are you really like fine? Cool. Do you want to quit? You want to let this happen? Do you want to let your business go and fail? Do you want to let COVID kind of just like, just mess up your entire kind of like flow in terms of business? Like that's another thing. It was like, but it was a conversation with myself, and it's like, you can either let this like kind of like mess you up for the rest of your life, and then you can live under a bridge, or you can use this stuff as like energy. Which one's gonna be, buddy? And I choose every single time. Every single time is like I choose like, all right, I don't give a f. I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna die trying, and it just won't matter, right? And then at that point in time, when the result is already kind of like a foregone conclusion, you find the resources, you figure it out, and I truly believe that with like every single situation.
You know what? One of the things I've just and just one of the ways of thinking that I've got very into in the last kind of 6 to 12 months, especially, is and I think it's to do with like meditation. I started meditating maybe about 2, 3 years ago, because I would hear all of these entrepreneurs talk about meditation and how it would change their life, and it would unlock all of this potential and all of these things. And I remember my first few years trying to do it. Honestly, like I was having no effects. And when I would try to do it, I would just fall asleep. Like I would do like these 15-minute meditations. It would just be a nap. And like my family members would be like making fun of me. They're like, you were just sleeping. Like what is going on? But I think when it really locked in for me and I really started to do it consistently, I think it's led me to this belief that I want to be present as much as possible, because I want to be operating at like an instinct level. So when I say an instinct level, I mean like as humans, right? We were, there was a point in our history where we like lived in the forest, we lived in the jungle, and it was about survival. And when it comes down to survival, I feel like you get really fucking creative, right? Like even if you think about some of the things that we build as humans, even if you think about the caveman, like, I don't know, rubbing 2 pieces of rock together to make a fire, it's like, what even makes you think of that? But like, when you need to think of something, you'll get creative. You'll start rubbing rocks together. I don't know, figure out how to like cut down a tree and build shelter or build weapons to protect against like threats or predators. We all have that creativity. We all have that problem solving instinct. I think a lot of the times the comforts of modern society mean that you never actually have to access that. You never have to access that level of intensity, that level of creativity, that level of innovation, because we're not in do or die situations the majority of the time. And when I listen to you speak, that moment where you're like, fuck it, it almost feels like it's accessing that instinct level. It's accessing that survival level. And I think what comes after that is a commitment. And that's really the thing that separates, right? It's like and I've realized this with myself, very few things that we do, we're 100% committed. And I'm not talking about 100% committed in like, I don't know, you just tried hard. I mean 100% commitment like, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to die. I remember there's like a thing from Will Smith where he says that, where he's like, I was on the treadmill against someone else, and I was like, they're either getting off first or I'm going to die on the treadmill. That's almost what I think about as 100% commitment. And it brings me back to working out, because working out has also had a great impact on my life. And it's interesting, right? We're in March. This is the time of the year where all the people with the resolutions and the plans, it's probably kind of faded out right now, right? It's over. The commitment is gone. And I feel like before you can achieve anything great, it starts with a commitment. And it seems like when you decide that you're going to do something, the commitment is there and the commitment persists. And so I want to know on a mindset level, I want to know on a habits level, if there's things that you're doing day to day, small tasks, how, even for your clients when you're training them, because I guess sometimes they just don't want to do it. They don't want to see it through. How can people start to build that commitment muscle? How can people start to build that level of intensity that I said I'm going to do this thing, and because I said I'm going to do it, it's going to happen? How can people build that?
Well, the first thing I would do is like look back to what they have actually accomplished before. Uh, it's pretty important to have a modicum of like two things, which is like a collection of wins that you've had, of things that you've worked for and accomplished to prove to yourself, because sometimes we just forget. We're just like, every single time that we're after something else, we just forget about all the things that we've accomplished that have led us to this very point. We feel like complete beginners. We feel like sometimes abject losers. And the other one is what I think like is really cool. I like David Goggins' own cookie jar of what he calls the cookie jar of fuck, which is like what you've been asking me. What are all those like all these situations where it seemingly was going to bring me to impending doom or depression? And then what happened as a result of that? Where am I as a result of that? So I would reach back first and find these little stories that are seemingly innocuous to the other person, but to you, they're important. And then give yourself at least enough like proof that you can make this happen. Now, the other thing I would also like throw in there with this like DNGAF mentality is literally like, that's it. It's like, I remember when I was again, like when I was like training, and when I was in the personal training and I was just getting started, and then I'd have like a bad week or whatever it is. I wouldn't like close like a sale. I wouldn't have income coming in. And then I'd have these doubts that would come into my mind. I don't know, Dan. I don't think that this is gonna be the thing for us. And then literally it's me going in my brain. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. We're doing this. All right. So like, it's not really like shut the fuck up, but sometimes it is. But it's really just like, yo, just shut up. Just let me just keep on doing this, okay? And that's it. I'm gonna do this or die trying. I'm literally keep on telling myself that. That's literally all I tell myself. And it is that conversation that we have inside of our minds that we have to be the most conscious about. It's that conversation which is like, I don't know if I want to do this last rep, you know, when your body can actually do a lot more than that. It's you having control over your mind, and it doesn't happen overnight. First, it happens through just monitoring what the conversation is in the first place that's happening inside of your mind. What are all your doubts? What are all your fears? Lay them out. And then afterwards, it's having the peace, or I guess you could say the conscious thought of mind to watch whatever is happening inside of your brain. And every single weak thought that ever comes across, you basically obliterate it by saying something like, I don't give a fuck. We're going to do this or die trying. I don't care. Okay. And it's literally like taking over the vocabulary and the conversation that you're having inside of your brain. And I'm going to tell you this as well. It's like, it never goes away. Because when you're striving for more and more and more, when you're striving for bigger and bigger and bigger, guess what? Like, no one does it completely confident. No one does it like, all right, like I freaking got this. That's like overconfidence to me. So when, even for me, like, you know, I'm going through a period of my time where I'm trying to create something great. I'm trying to create something great out of the social media posts that I put, out of the audience that I'm building, out of the business that I'm creating. And then there are certain doubts that come into my mind. And they're just like all these old, like survival based thoughts. And then the same thing goes on in my mind that I have to retrain myself to do. So, like, I'll use an example of like, let's just say like money, for example, right? So let's just say that, you have this goal of like making 6 figures. So you end up making like 6 figures and you did it through effort, hard work. And then afterwards, you're like, okay, cool. Like, can I make it like 200,000? Can I make 300,000? Then you do it, and then you do it, and then you do it. Even all during those times that you're trying to like up level your income, you are gonna get those specific doubts in your mind that says like, fuck, like, I don't know, man. Like, this is so hard. I don't know what to do. And oh my gosh, like it's just a step ladder. Every single time that you're trying to level up, it's always gonna come back. So you always just have to be conscious about it. One thing that I love to do is I love to take a journal. I love to write in a journal to myself and really peer into the conversation that is happening inside of my own mind. And yeah, even in my journal, I'm just like, like if any weak thought comes, I'm like, no, I don't give a fuck. Like we're doing this. Okay. I don't care. And that is it. It's like take over the conversation inside of your own brain. And then once you take over the conversation, take action on the things that you say that you're going to take action on. And mood always follows action. Confidence always follows action. So you don't get confidence by saying that I'm like a tiger or I'm like a bear or like whatever it is and like big yourself up. You get confidence by actually doing the thing that you're freaking scared about. And then just keep on doing it over and over and over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And this reminds me like, so we were talking about catalysts. In April 2020, that's when COVID hit. That's when I had my first child as well. And during that time, when COVID hit, a lot of like my own clients were just like, man, I'm not going to do this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So sorry, and that coincided the same time as like my daughter coming into the world. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, well, crap. What am I going to do? And then I ended up saying like, okay, well, if I can't do this like coaching or training thing right now, then I got to focus on something else. And that's what brought me to Twitter in the first place. And then I started focusing on Twitter. And the whole thing about Twitter and growing my audience, and even to this day, the only thing that goes on in my mind is just like show up, do the work, and look for ways to improve. Mm-hmm. And the more that I can just like do those 3 things every single day and show up every single day, no matter if I'm pumping out amazing tweets or like dog shit, it doesn't matter. I'm like showing up and I'm looking for ways to improve and I'm recreating myself every single time that I step in front of the computer. So yeah, it's really just like committing yourself by saying like, okay, well, what's this conversation that's happening in my mind? And then what is the action that you're going to be committing to every single day? What is your version of showing up and doing the work? What are you showing up to? What type of work are you doing? What is it that you're going to do consistently, no matter rain or shine, that is eventually going to get you to the level of success that you are after?
Yeah. What I love about this conversation is what we're talking about is it's identity level change. And these are some of the most difficult, agonizing, as you're experiencing it and as you're going through it, at times like torturous changes to go through. Sometimes the level of fear, the level of doubt that you feel as you're trying to make identity level change, trying to really change the way that you even think about yourself. It's difficult. But within that journey are some of that's where the best results are, right? That's the thing that you really take pride in, the things that you really look back at and you're like, wow, like I did that. And so I love it because I think it's going to be incredibly powerful for the audience. And what you were saying, it reminded me, I put out a tweet like this, I think last week. I was watching an interview with Andy Frisella and Alex Hormozi. And I'm listening to the first hour. I think it's like 3.5 hour, 4-hour podcast. I'm listening to the first hour and I pause it and I start typing out a tweet. And basically what I wrote, I was like, sometimes you have to like brainwash yourself that this shit is going to succeed. And it's interesting, like even listening to people that have achieved certain things speak, it was like it's almost like they've brainwashed themselves. Alex was talking about a moment where he made a sale, he made all of this money for this client, and the client just ran off with the money. And he's talking about it now in hindsight. And you're listening to the guy, you're like, wait, the way that he's framed it almost sounds like it was a win. Like he's so grateful for that moment and what he learned from it and how it springboarded him to this next level. And it made me realize, I was like, this guy has brainwashed himself for success. Clear losses are now wins. And so, I think it's an incredibly powerful thing for the audience, and it's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do in your life. Here's where I want to go. Next. You train entrepreneurs and kind of like people that just they perform at a certain level in their career and in their life. If I want to be, I think there'll be people in the audience that are like, listen, man, like the gym stuff is cool, but like I just want to crush it in business. I want to show up to my job and I want to crush it. Maybe in like a dating sense. Like that's where I'm trying to crush it. I don't know what the workouts even have to do with that. Like I think we've all seen like someone who's like very senior in a company who's ridiculously out of shape, or like the entrepreneur who like he's like eating takeout every day and he's like kind of chubby. He's not in shape. That might even be a more common thing that you see than the really in shape entrepreneur.
That's why I do what I do.
You know what? So
yeah.
So talk to me about it. Like for that person that is geared mentally that way, where they're thinking about their performance in the boardroom, they're thinking about their performance in, I don't know, sales, marketing, all these things. What is the value to them of working out and getting in shape?
The value to them is like the enhancement of like every single area of their life. The people I speak to, especially like the entrepreneurs I speak to, the highest achievers, they want to reach their full potential in every area of life. They don't have ceilings on the things that they deem important to them. And then, we talked. You mentioned about like the senior guy who's like out of shape, or the entrepreneur who's like always eating takeout. And here's what I say to that: it's like my concept of success is so different than the average person's concept of success. I look at that, a person who has traded their health for their business, and maybe they make $100 million or whatever it is. I don't think he's successful. I don't think he's successful at all. And maybe people would agree with me, maybe not. But my idea of success is like holistic. So the reason I actually started like helping entrepreneurs in the first place was I would like be part of like these masterminds with people, doing ridiculous numbers, like just way out of your gourd, like however much that they're making inside of their lives. And I would be almost flabbergasted when I looked at kind of like the way that they were treating their bodies. And I'm like, you have all of this like resource, of this capital resource right here. And what I see is a glass ceiling that you've placed upon yourself about how healthy that you can be. You look at trading your time for fitness as maybe like a liability, when the reality is like the biggest asset that you have. So every single time that we put an entrepreneur through our program, every single time, we have seen the most amazing things. Like number one is like they increase their earning capacity. So anytime that you're feeling more energy, anytime that you're feeling healthier, anytime you're feeling more confident, that is going to bleed over into what you do for a living. That's number one, right? number two is, hey, guess what? Like with that energy, with that capacity to focus, with looking better, with being a better example, guess what? You're a better family man or a family person. You're a better husband. You're a better parent. You're a better wife. So I look at kind of like the aspect of taking care of your body and the reason why I do what I do as a way in which to unlock the potential of every single entrepreneur that comes into my circle of influence. And for me, it's like it's just beautiful when I see them kind of like open up, see how simple getting in shape can be, see how streamlined it can be, especially with like their resources. And I just love the aspect of them taking control of the one thing that they actually do have control over, which is their health and their body. So to that, like to the entrepreneurs, like, I don't know about this whole health thing. I can just like be the fat man and the red BMW and do all this kind of stuff. And cool, that's cool for you, right? My concept of success is not it's not about money. It's actually about number one, like how well are you taking care of your body? How well are you taking care of your family? How present are you with your children? Uh, what are you doing to actually impact other people and help them? Are you living up to the thing that you were meant to do on this world? Or are you just taking the easy path, the most comfortable path that makes you the most money? And yes, do you have like earning capacity? Can you provide a living for both yourself and a comfortable living for your family? So, you know, everybody reveres these entrepreneurs who are like making all these millions of dollars. And to that, I say, great, good for them. My idea of success is way different. And I feel like with a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, they have this like self-limiting mindset where it's like, I can only have this if I sacrifice my family and my health to do it. When the reality is that, hey, if you can think as well as you could, why not create an environment and a situation for yourself to actually have it all? Like, what would that look like? Right? So that's the way I approach success. That's the way I approach success with my entrepreneurs and the people that work with me. And I do believe that everyone can have it all. It's just a matter of thought, organizing your life in a way which actually expresses your priorities, and doing so and making sure that you're creating boundaries for the things that matter most to you.
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. The thought of like, and you're right, it is a self-limiting belief, right? Because, and it's actually an interesting debate having it all, because, and I don't really even know where I land on it, because sometimes I think about it and I'm like, there's a cost to everything, right? Like if I want this podcast to be the number one podcast, and say it does achieve that, there would have been a cost in terms of time spent away from other people, time I could have spent doing something else. At certain points, it will impact my health, like my sleep and different things.
Will it though?
And what do you mean by that?
Because you're thinking of the cost as like the things that you are already thinking that you have to trade for the success that you want. Right? You're like, oh, I'm going to lose sleep. Oh, I'm not going to be able to see my friends. I'm not going to be able to see my family. Oh, I'm going to be working like 19, 20 hours a day, or like whatever it is, right? You're like, when you say these things, you're already putting these obligations on you and these beliefs on you. I think about it like this. This is what I want. This is the lifestyle I want. How can I create an environment for myself to have what I want while also having the lifestyle that I want? And then that takes some thought, because then you have to create boundaries for yourself, right? Maybe you're choosing to go maybe a little bit of a slower path, and that's okay. But what you are already doing, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people do, is like, well, I have to like trade everything for this and whatever. It's like, no, then that means you lose yourself, right? Why don't you keep yourself, keep the things that you love while being a successful podcaster? And there are ways to do it. There are ways to have a life and to have your cake and eat it too. So yeah, that's the big challenge that I would throw at you. And it's like, what is your system? What is the thing that you're going to do every single day? Does this mean that, if Ray Dalio wants to like interview with you and he only has like 9 p.m. at night at, whatever time zone that you're in? Yeah, sure. You're going to take that for sure. Does it mean that you're going to have to do that every single time? No. At some point in time, you're going to be so successful that people are going to be wanting to go under your schedule. People are going to be wanting to schedule themselves under you and go to you in wherever you are in New York, right? So that's like the way I kind of like think about things. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? As you were saying that, I was thinking it is a self-limiting belief, right? And I was thinking, where does that come from? Like, why is that the case? Why? Because really, and we spoke about identity kind of throughout this whole thing. It's, do I believe that I can get this nice like lifestyle? I can get the lifestyle that I'd want and do the work that I would want. It almost sounds like too idyllic, like too dreamlike. It doesn't.
It depends on who you're getting your advice from. Like we're living in this like hustle culture, so to speak, right? And I think advice is very expensive. Actually some of the most expensive advice has been advice that I've gotten. And a lot of times it really is asking yourself, okay, well, if this is what I want and this is also what I want, it's like using your thinking capacity to be like, how can I meld these two things together in a way that serves me the best? Right? And a lot of people kind of like go into like work harder. And that's true. You need hard work, right? In my case, I'm like, I'm going to work hard in the hours that I have, that I've like divided for myself to be working. The rest of the hours, I'm going to be doing what I want. Right? So again, it's like, who do we get this advice from? Who's the one that's putting their philosophies inside of our own brains? And I wouldn't say that I'm like Jeff Bezos or like Elon Musk or whatever. I'm married, I love my family. I love spending time with them. I do spend time with them. They're a big part of my life. And yet at the same time, like, I feel like I'm pretty darn successful by the metrics that I place upon myself, both holistically and even financially. So it's just a matter of thought. It's a matter of one, belief, and it's a matter of two, strategy, right? So I look at it like this, like, so what's your North Star? And when I say North Star, it's not like, okay, I want to be the number one podcaster, entrepreneur, or whatever, in the entrepreneurship space. Like, yes, that is your North Star. What are these like pillars that would actually make you a whole human being as a result of getting to this particular pinnacle for yourself? One would be like family. The other one would be health. And then the other one would be like marketing. And the other one would be like reach out. Or the other one would be like production. Like whatever it is, right? Whatever these pillars are. And then all of these pillars are towards the North Star. The North Star is both the lifestyle that you want and the goal that you're after. And these two things are not mutually exclusive to each other.
You know what's interesting? Because I'm thinking about this as you're speaking. I'm thinking, why is this the case? And one of the things you mentioned earlier, right, is for those entrepreneurial clients that you work with, the way that their mind works, and this is how my mind works also to a large degree, it's about optimizing like potential, maximizing potential. And so doesn't it get to a point, because you speak about like a holistic lifestyle, something that it's multifaceted. It's not just career goals and success, right? But to the person that almost obsesses over optimizing potential, does there not get a certain conflict where they're like, if I took 10% out of that family bucket and I took 10% out of that health bucket, and I took 10% out of that leisure bucket, and I added all of that, and I just put it into this career thing. Is that not taking it to another level? And I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I'm saying, like, to the person that is geared to maximize potential and maximize what I can do in this arena, is it not almost like a natural thing that's going to happen for that person? That it's, the lines are going to start to become blurred. The boundaries that they maybe have even defined are just going to become blurred because that's how their wiring is. That's how they're built.
I don't know, man. You know, because like anytime that says that that's how I'm built and that's how I'm wired, that is like what they have actually just affirmed to themselves through identity. Like, sure, people come wired a certain way through genetics, epigenetics, and like all this kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, it's like when people say like I'm wired to do this kind of thing, and I'm like, no, like that is the thing that you identify with. So if you identify with being this guy that has to take these this percentages out of all these buckets just so you can reach and optimize like your full potential, then that is what you are going to identify with, and that's what you're going to do, right? But I like to kind of like think a little bit deeper ahead. And a person who's like trying to optimize their potential, I'm like, why? Right? Like what's the big why behind that? You know, and is it going to be worth not being able to see your kids while they're growing up? Is it going to be worth like your kids not even wanting to hang with you when they grow up? Is it going to be worth divorces? Is it going to be worth your kids actually having to go through a divorce and having to live in a separate parent household? And are you really just like saying to yourself that this is what I got to do to reach my full potential as an excuse to not do those things and to get away from those things? In reality, you're giving yourself an excuse that you can actually maximize your potential by making the most out of your time that you have, that you're given, and then also come back home and be an awesome like dad and take care of your health, be an awesome parent. Like, so when someone's like says something like that, I'm just like, well, why? and you know, I get it. You know, people don't really think that far ahead. For me, I think in decades, man. And I just don't think in decades in terms of like my career. I think in decades in terms of life. To me, life is the thing. And that doesn't mean like trying to get freaking 1 billion followers or like make $1 billion or whatever it is. Because I know that even if or even when I get those things are empty as fuck. Like, they're empty. Like, the thing, even like a guy trying to win an NBA championship, yes, that's great. You won an NBA championship. You can tell yourself that all day. But if your kids don't want to hang with you, I mean, that's a pretty damn big cost, right? Could you have done things better instead of having this kind of like limited way of thinking in terms of your time, in terms of your allocation of the most important resource? So yeah, when someone says something like that, I'm like, okay, well, if you want to reach and maximize your full potential, well, how can you do that with the time that you're given? And how can you actually give to all these buckets? And I'm not going to say that it's always going to be perfect, because balance is really just it's like a teeter-totter, to be honest. Sometimes you're going to be balanced, or sometimes you're going to be imbalanced with business. Sometimes you're going to be imbalanced with family. Sometimes you're going to be imbalanced with health. Sometimes all these things are going to be balanced at the same time. And that's cool. But it doesn't mean that you don't put the effort into those things when you can. So yeah, man, that's probably what I would say to someone like that.
Yeah. You know, I think one thing, try to learn something from every episode, and I think I do. And I think with this one, it's like, it's the self-narrative. I think something that we're not aware of, and I think meditation again helped me with it, because you just become more aware of your thoughts through meditation and breath work. We all have a narrative. We all have a certain story that we tell ourselves, a certain way that we rationalize things. And sometimes that narrative is serving you, but then it can reach a level where it's actually becoming detrimental. And there needs to be kind of a constant evolution in how you're thinking to make sure that is the self narrative still, and you spoke about the North Star, is the self narrative still supporting the North Star? And at one point it could have been, and at another point it couldn't have been. So that is something, it's something definitely for me to reflect on, and other people in the audience.
I would throw in there, it's like, I mean, where is this like motivation for that North Star? And that is the thing that you have to find. What is like the why? And what people don't understand and realize, like their why for wanting to be as great as they are, it stems from probably a deep-seated feeling of insecurity and not being secure in themselves. And they won't know that unless they introspect and unless they ask themselves like the right question. You know, even the concept of like being the best and like all this kind of stuff. To be like number one means that like you would thus be comparing yourselves to others based on what this actual thing is, to be the number one or whatever it is. You're constantly comparing yourself and just like kind of like seeing where yourself is in that pecking order. Now, the cliche obviously is like, oh, okay, be the best version of yourself, right? Like, and that's something that I've been kind of coming back to a little bit. It's like I'm trying to, build, this, I guess you could say, like my influence out there in the world right now. And what is number one of what, And then when I start to think about it, I'm just like, well, I mean, what really means the most to me, which is being authentic and putting out my voice that I feel is the most authentic to me. And if I can do that in a way that can convey what I think, and if people like it, cool. If people don't, cool. But that to me is probably like the better way to go about it. Can I actually be the best version of myself and influence people in that particular way without really like trying to be like number one at anything other than just like being more myself? So, yeah.
That's powerful. Before we go, I wanna hit you with some kind of like quick fire questions.
Yeah.
You spoke about advice. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh man, what is the best piece of advice I've ever been given? Um, Probably the only advice is that I can think of that has actually changed my life was like the advice that I gave myself. It's like, emotion can burn you alive, or it can be used as fuel. And it's on you to make the choice of what you decide that is. This isn't to say to push down your emotions or to numb yourself away from them, but I really do feel that my thoughtfulness towards like my emotional output has been probably a big catalyst to my success. I know it sounds pretty self-serving to say like my best advice is like come from me. I can kind of like feel that a little bit, but really it's like I'm there are just like all these little bits and pieces of like advice that just I'm drawing a blank on right now. But I do know that there are actually, I guess like the best piece of advice like I ever got was actually from my mom. She would tell me when I was like a high school dropout and just going nowhere in life. She would basically like in my lowest points, she'd be like, "Hey, like you can pretty much like put your mind to anything and achieve it." And she literally kept on driving that down inside of my brain. She was the only person that would really speak to me like that, and I wouldn't listen to her, and I hadn't listened to her until she actually passed away.
No, that's powerful. You said emotional output. If you were going to give someone a few tips on how they can start to, I feel like most of us, we're not even aware of our emotional output. And most people
Yeah.
just feel emotions. You're not even aware that there's like, I don't know, there's something happening there. How can I
Yeah.
start to become more aware of my emotional output?
It's like when it's happening, it's like allow yourself to feel it. And what most people do is like they're gonna go reach for like some bag of chips, or they're gonna go out for a walk, or they're gonna go like whatever it is. However people react to their emotions, they'll go on Twitter and just like start up a storm or whatever it is, start offending people. Um, feel and allow yourself to feel that emotion fully. Where is it coming from? Where do you feel it inside of your body? Can you sit with it? Can you be conscious with it? Can you allow yourself to be so conscious and be in that emotion that you can actually start to feel it dissipate? I have this thing with like emotions where it's like, I feel a lot of times people kind of like keep on going through the same cycle, vicious cycle of like emotions because they try to numb and not even think about the emotion that they're feeling. I do feel that emotions need to actually pass through rather than for you to put a stop to them. So allow yourself to feel it. Then afterwards, pop up a journal, and then you don't even have to be coherent. Just write out anything. Have a conversation with yourself. Have a conversation about what you're feeling. What is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Where do you feel it? And then where do you think this emotion derived or was derived from? I remember there was like this time when I was early on in my Twitter journey. You know how people can be in the replies and all that kind of stuff. You could be like, "You fucking suck" or whatever it is. And there's like this one comment that just grinded my gears for some reason. And I was in the gym in Toronto at the time, and I was just like, I was like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, why is this bothering me? And then I would just like, really, I took my phone out and started like just typing out. I was like, why? Where did this come from? Why is this bothering me? And then I kind of dug so much and so deep during that time when I was in the warm up of like my freaking workout that I realized that, hey, I have this want for people to like me. And this came from me being like the youngest person in my family. And I feel like with emotions, especially when they happen, it's like feel them, be introspective, get to the root of them, and then next time it happens, you'll know exactly why it happened. And you know exactly why you're feeling what you're feeling. Instead of being like, trying to like put it out on someone else or trying to numb it with like food or alcohol.
100%. Okay, cool. What's I have two more. What's the worst piece of advice that you've ever been given? You said advice is expensive. What is the worst piece of advice?
Worst piece of advice that I've ever been given. I would say it's like any type of advice where I've given myself to be just lazy, to take the lazy way out, the soft, the quick, the shortcut. Anytime that I've ever like said, hey, this can get me here like faster and quicker time with less effort, that's usually the path that just ends up putting you about 4 or 5 steps back. Usually. Yeah, if I'm gonna say like my best piece of advice like came from me or whatever, like then I'm gonna say my worst piece of advice probably came from me as well. And also like the other advice that I got, which was like don't go into fitness. It's a freaking it's a side job. You're not gonna make any money out of it. You're gonna why don't you go work for your family and all this kind of stuff and take the easy way out. Probably the worst advice that I ever got during that time.
Okay, actually, I lied. I have two more. So the first one is sleep. I think everyone talks about the morning routine. I want to know your nighttime routine. How can people get better sleep? Like, what can they do to get better sleep?
I'm probably the worst guy to talk to about this. Most likely the worst guy. So, like, when my nighttime routine happens, although I do get to sleep pretty well, it's so my nighttime routine is like at 5 or 6 p.m. I'm putting on my blue light blockers, just to kind of like entrain my body to kind of like just be tired by the time I need to go to sleep, and then once we put our daughter to sleep and, kind of do that, then I'm literally just doing something as brainless as humanly possible for the next like half hour, 45 minutes. Like it could be like playing a video game. It could be watching something dumb on like Netflix or whatever, but I'm literally trying to like turn my brain off and do something just like somewhat entertaining. I know some people like they have like the nighttime journals and like, whatever. And for me, I'm just trying to turn my brain off. And then by the time like 9 p.m. hits or 9:30 or so, I go down to my room, brush my teeth, floss, do all that kind of stuff. And then once I'm done all that stuff, I go into my bed and I put on my Kindle. And right now I'm reading. I always read kind of like a biography or like a fiction book. And right now I'm reading The Gray Man, which is like this action novel or whatever it is. And after about like one chapter, I'm like, I'm pretty good to go. I'm ready to go to sleep. So I would say like that is my nighttime routine. It's not sexy whatsoever. I tried the whole like writing stuff down and whatever it is like right before you go to sleep, but I actually do that routine like right after I'm done like my work day. So yeah, I don't have any elaborate nighttime routines or anything like that, but I have pretty good sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. The final one is the cold showers, or just like the cold exposure just in general. I
Yeah.
feel like um what is the benefit? I understand for like athletes who are like doing the recovery and like, LeBron after he's like, I don't know, put up 40 points and had a crazy game. I get why he needs to go in the cold tub and like it helps.
Yeah.
He's playing a back to back the next game, like the next day or whatever. To the
Mhm.
normal human, is
Yeah.
there a benefit to kind of like the cold exposure? And if so, like what is a good amount that I can add into my daily routine and habits?
Yeah. I think like okay, so there's like physical and then there's like spiritual, right? So like the physical benefit that you get out of it is this like increase in just adrenaline and dopamine first thing in the morning when you put cold water onto your body. It's one of like I drink a coffee because I want to, not because I need to. After the cold shower, I'm just like I'm awake, and also I find that my mood has been. I just find like I'm in a better mood after doing a cold shower. It's probably because my body's like, yeah, we need to help you survive, so let's bring all these like blood flow to your brain and everything like that. And also like there's like the spiritual thing. I do feel that our lives are getting so comfortable. We have to do these like voluntary forms of like hardship in order to feel human again. Like I have to like take myself out and I have to walk on purpose, not because I'm trying to like walk to somewhere. I have to walk on purpose somewhere, or I have to walk on purpose just to like make my brain work better. And I feel like with cold showers, it's like doing something hard first thing in the morning. I think that it has this like slight effect of like, hey, I did something hard in the morning. I made the decision. I remember talking to one of the, I wouldn't call him a mentor, but it's just this guy, and he basically says like when you make the choice to turn the knob, that is choosing courage first thing in the morning. So anytime that you do that, it's kind of like this like, okay, well, I chose to do this. I told my brain, turn it to the right, even though I didn't want to. And then that is going to bleed over into the rest of my day with the stuff that I have to do. So I would say like both physically and spiritually, it feels like a benefit. And I don't think like everyone has to do it. I pretty sure there's like many amazing people out there who don't take cold showers and who live really awesome lives. I'm just like I love these experiments though. Like that's the thing with me. It's like I love doing these experiments. I love doing an experiment where you just stop drinking alcohol for like 200 days. I love doing the experiment with like I do cold showers for 30 days, and I love journaling out. I feel like my whole body and my life is like this one science experiment. So, this is just one of the experiments that I've run on myself that has given me, some benefit. and it's not going to be the last one. I'm probably going to do some other kind of like cool stuff. I don't know what it is yet, but probably going to do some other stuff. But it's just like an experiment that I did, and yeah, I got benefit out of it. So yeah, people want to try it, then they can.
Yeah. Okay. No, I love it. Thank you for so much for coming on, Dan. I appreciate it. It's been a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel. We're having fire conversations every week on the podcast. Before we end the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Free Agency. What if I told you there is a good chance you're leaving money on the table in your career? It would kind of annoy you a bit, right? Well, Free Agency aims to stop that. They represent and manage talent in the tech industry. Here's how they do it. First, they provide you with a dedicated talent agent. Think about this as your career quarterback. They understand you and your career goals. Based on that understanding, they bring you suitable interviews at top firms. You focus on smashing the interview, and together with their network, research, negotiation expertise, they will make sure you get a top of market salary. Stop job searching alone and start building your dream career today with Free Agency.